Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Perspectives in Focus. I am your host, James Hicks. We got a great show going for you here today, July 2nd. I've got my man, Mr. Steve Worthy, sit behind the scenes. We are going to talk to him about what he's been doing from a content creation perspective, from a leadership coach perspective. You know, he's focused on the retail industry, and he's got a tagline that I really love. It says, "Retail impacts everyone, every day, all around the world." I love that, and I want to dive into that and get to understand again how he's maintained his organization, maintained his entrepreneurship, built his journey, and how, if by anything, the last 15 months or so that the world has essentially stopped,
Mm.
how he's been able to pivot and continue to be successful. So I'm gonna stop talking. I'm gonna go ahead and get into it and bring this man on the screen. Mr. Steve Worthy, how you doing, brother?
Man, I'm doing extremely, extremely well. This has been long overdue for both of us to connect.
Yes.
I'm ecstatic, man. I'm ecstatic to be here.
Thank you, man. Thank you. I see some folks chiming in. So thank you for joining us. Feel free to interject and ask any questions of Mr. Worthy as well. I'm going to try to pick his brain for as long as he lets me. So let's go ahead and get into it, man. So talk to
Yeah.
me about who is Steve Worthy and what is Worthy Retail U. Talk to us a little bit about who that is and what that means.
Yeah, it's a great question, man. And I'm glad you put it that way around who is Steve Worthy, because I think a lot of us sometimes when we start to create something, we don't take ourselves into consideration, because whatever it is that we create has to be part of who we are. And I think the tendency for me with Worthy Retail U, how it initially started, was something that was kind of a little bit outside myself. So Worthy Retail U is an organization, and our platform is around helping retail leaders enhance their culture, um, empower themselves, but more importantly, also grow their career. In my entire probably 25 years of leadership, about 20 of it has been in the retail industry as a retail executive. And so I found my niche. Prior to Worthy Retail U, we had started a company called Worthy Leadership Group. Now, the premise of Worthy Leadership Group, the content, the strategy, and how we handle our coaching clients was exactly what I needed it to be. However, my audience was incorrect and my target was incorrect. And so when I finally got my target right, I tell you what, James, the clarity that I was able to have of how I could connect with people and use my experience and use my influence, but more importantly, get people from where they are to where they need to be, was something that um, just kind of took over. I honestly believe that once I got that clarity of where I needed to focus, it was just game on for me. Now I'm just
Okay.
excited to kind of move forward.
So talk to us a little bit about that, because that's interesting. I mean, it's almost, I would say, superficial to the point of where it's almost just a name change, but you actually had kind of a pivot from a mindset as well in terms of what your direction was. Let's dive into that a little bit, because again, a lot of the audience that's watching this is going to be entrepreneurs, again, also content creators. I see folks in the comments as well. Shouts out, we see Alicia Way, we see Laura Williams, but
We live. What's up, Alicio?
yeah, but talk to us a little bit about, again, why something as, I'm gonna say, minimal, and correct me if I'm wrong. Again, I'm gonna throw out these doubting Thomas types of questions, but
Of
something
course.
like just changing the name
Yeah.
made you actually find where you should be in this
Oh,
broad marketplace.
great question. Great question. So one of the things that I always tell leaders, and I talk to them all the time about, is that you have to change before it's time. And a lot of times we don't do that. We plateau and we feel that we're actually really there and we're good. Um, we've got there based on our talents and where we are, and we think our talents are going to keep us there. And so, honestly, I was taking my own advice of how do you change before it's necessary, and that takes a lot of introspection, and that takes some time, and that takes giving yourself some space. And if you're a perfectionist, a lot of times it means that, hey, I got this wrong, or I got this kind of half right. Now I want to get it completely right. And so the idea around what we did, I'll give you this. I'll use this story, and this is exactly how it transpired. My podcast. So we had Worthy Leadership Group, and then the podcast was named The Worthy Podcast, and it was about executive coaching for diverse leaders. And I felt the content for my podcast was good, but the audience, once again, was incorrect. So what I did, once again, I took some of my own advice. I actually got a podcast coach, and he walked me through each one of my episodes, and we started to drill down, and we're like, man, the content is good, but we feel like you're missing the mark on something. And so we started walking through my history, started walking through my experience. And the funny part, James, was that someone said to me, hey, Steve, you should start a podcast on retail leadership. And I said, I'll do that down the line after Theworthy podcast gets bigger and kind of blows up. And my podcast coach said, hold it for a second. Talk to me a little bit about that. Yeah. And I started going on and on. He said, I'm going to give you a challenge. I want you to come up with 13 episodes for retail leadership. I want you to come up with 13 episodes. And we're going to connect next week. James, I came up with 40. I came up with 40 like mutually exclusive, really content-rich topics for retail leadership. And I looked at my website, I looked at my clientele, and 80% of the people that I was coaching were actually retail executives.
Wow.
And it was just, for me, it was like a moment of like, duh. Why were you trying to chase all of these other things when your niche was right here? So if there's anything that I could tell people, niching down sometimes is hard, because a lot of times you have to tell yourself that you were wrong or that you didn't get it right. And a lot of times we don't want to do that. We want to just trudge on down this path. And we have to realize sometimes we have to kind of take that step back, and sometimes that's hard.
That's incredibly valuable. And I love the fact that you found clarity. You were in the process, you found clarity in your mission, and you weren't stubborn, right? You got out of your own way, and you were able to say, you know what, I know this field, I know this industry, let me go ahead and go down this path. I'm already successful. Talk to me about why did you go to school for retail leadership, retail management, or is this just something that you've been interested in?
Oh, so no, what we say in retail, no one, it's almost like they say about Taco Bell. No one goes to Taco Bell, you end up at Taco Bell. It's the same thing in retail. You don't go to school for retail, you kind of end up in retail, and that's exactly what happened. So right out of the Air Force, I actually did 4 years and finished my undergrad in accounting. Okay. And back then, because I'm a little old guy, and back then it was the Big Six, and you could make $56K like right out of college back in New York City, without getting your CPA. And I was like, okay, let's do it. Yeah. I'm going to do it. I lasted 6 months. I hated it. Wow. I couldn't stand it. I was in this cubicle looking at my trial balance. It was just like, I don't want to do this. So I ended up taking a trip to Charlotte, North Carolina, and I ended up coming across this company called Caribou Coffee, and connected with their manager, the district manager, and also their regional manager. He offered me an opportunity to become a district manager. I had no understanding about the specialty retail industry. I didn't like coffee. I just liked the culture of the company.
Yeah.
I just liked the culture of the company. But once I got into retail, like I say in some of my episodes, once I got into it, I just loved it. It fits my personality. I probably have the attention span of a 5-year-old, and it fits my thought process, quick, thinking on your feet, having to adjust quickly, having to get people on board very quickly, galvanize them around a central idea and execute. It just completely fit my mentality. And so I kind of fell into retail, and then after that had other multiple units, regional roles with different bigger retail companies as well.
Interesting. So let me ask you this, because I want to kind of tail in off of those statements right there, and I'll go into the one about what you've done again over the past 15 months in a second. But
yeah,
the pillars of what I see you doing from this, swipe this off your website: community, growth, authenticity, and leadership. You just talked around those, and let's dive deeper into again, because I think that sums up in those 4 statements right there what it is that you do and the messages that you're trying to portray, or that you are pushing to your clientele and the leaders that you're talking to. So let's talk a little bit about what those mean to Worthy Retail You.
Yeah, there is a statement.
I'm setting you up there, brother. Look, we having a good conversation.
Oh, this is good stuff, man. Listen to me. I mean, you and I were just talking a little bit about your clothing line and how much I love your your shirt, Chief Everything Officer. So we have a statement, and it's probably not original, it's probably not new, but we love it. And it says authenticity has no competition. I firmly believe that. And we strive to work with people so that they can become their authentic self. And I know people say that a lot. The other thing that we say a lot is that the more you know yourself, the more you can say no, because the tendency is that we want to do everything. But if you know yourself, if you truly galvanize around a central idea and value system of who you are, then all these things that kind of come across your plate, while they may be good, they're not the best thing for you. And I think from a coaching standpoint, and what we talk about from a community, if you will, is that we try to make sure people have a really good value system understanding of who they are. So when those things that shiny object syndrome that we talk a lot about comes across their plate, they're not falling victim to it. They can actually, stay pat and actually go forward. And that's the one reason why I actually love about the retail industry, because some of the most successful leaders, while the velocity of the industry changes hourly, if you will, if you have a strong value system and structure around the decisions that you make, gosh, because what do they say? They said the average individual makes around 35,000 decisions per day. In the retail industry, you can probably double that, because it's just not your ordinary circumstances. So having a really strong value system, it actually dictates everything that kind of comes forward out of your mouth. How do you lead? How do you communicate? Your approachability, your ability to create community, your ability to be authentic. Those are some of the lost arts. Having compassion. We don't talk a lot about compassion from a leadership standpoint, but I firmly believe that if you know yourself, you can be compassionate for yourself, but other leaders, and that's when you're able to lead quickly and effectively with people.
Now, your sessions, are they geared exclusively to those in leadership roles, or do you talk to the frontline workers as well, about teamwork, participation, and things like that, or you just focus on the C-level types of folks?
No, we do both. We do both. We do both. We do the frontliners as well, more in a group session as well, and then we do the individual coaching sessions. But our approach, what we focus in on, is what we call our GYM approach, which is grow, empower, and multiply. And in that idea is that we have people will go through a certain level within leadership, and they feel that they may have arrived, and we completely debunk that idea as we help people go through this process. That from a growth standpoint, you have to be planted first. You actually have to understand your structure, your value system, and what you need to feed yourself from a book standpoint, from a peer standpoint, all these different things. And then from an empowerment standpoint, now you can empower yourself to actually lead at a higher level, empower people around you, because a lot of times in leadership, people will hold on to things. No, you need to empower people with your knowledge and your wisdom to help them grow, because guess what? Now they're going to be a representation of you. The multiplication standpoint is the same thing. Now you're at another level. Now you need to multiply your leadership. But here's the thing, James, is that at every level, you have to go through that same process. It doesn't matter if you're a CEO, you still have to go through the growth, empower, and multiply phase. The same thing. And a lot of people will just say, I'm just going to stop here. No, it's iterative. And so we try to help them understand that just because you got to a certain level, you can't stay that way.
That message resonates with everyone. And I think it resonates. So this is going to be my personal opinion. I think that resonates with people when you have the opportunity to literally lay hands on folks, right? Walk around the conference room, right? What I call it, what I do every single day when I'm in front of a room doing the jazz hands. But right, when you actually have the ability to engage and interact with folks.
Yeah.
The world stopped for 15 months.
Oh.
Talk to us a little bit about how that may have affected you, especially retail. Because you need traffic, you need physical bodies going into locations. How has that affected you, your business, your engagement, and your interaction with some of these leaders? And have you been able to pivot, right, to still be successful?
That idea about approachability comes even more into play. I feel like approachability is one of those lost arts a lot of times in leadership. And I try to emphasize that, especially over the last 15 months or so. The other side of that approachability is not just your nonverbals and your body language, but it's your ability to listen. It's your empathetic listening. How are you listening to people? Are you truly getting to the gist of their fears and what may be going on in their life? because a lot of times we're so focused on the bottom line, but we have to realize that the individuals that work at our business unit, or our multi-unit leaders, or even our regional leaders and senior vice presidents, they actually have a myriad of people underneath them that they still have to engage. And then when you think about it from a Zoom standpoint, right? Everybody's zoomed out, but how do you be approachable on camera?
Yeah.
How do you be approachable in Zoom meetings? How do you empathetically listen via Zoom? And so we've been trying to help leaders really try to have a little bit more one-on-one conversations with people, even in the live retail settings. How can they still connect with people? Because that's something that was it was lost. And a lot of leaders. Here's the thing with retail, but a lot of people don't think about. They don't realize this. The retail leaders and the retail industries are very close knit community,
Mm.
because a lot of retail leaders feel that they don't get enough respect when it comes to leadership because of the industry retail. They feel, well, it's just a Dollar General store. It's just a mom and pop store, and we're just exchanging goods, money for goods. It's not about that at all. It's truly about relationships. And so when you take the pandemic into consideration,
Yeah.
those relationships are cut off with not just their peers, but also with their customers. And so how do you kind of get through that? And now, since we're opening up, man, I have seen the growth of so many leaders now, because they have been able to um, they've been able to grow introspectively and learn a little bit more about themselves, because I don't have that engagement level like I normally would.
Right.
So now when I'm actually able to have that engagement level, I'm going to approach you a lot differently. And so we've been trying to help them understand how to go through that process as well.
You mentioned something that kind of struck me, and I want to make sure that I say it before I forget. I'm getting old.
Not that old.
I'm a little bit older than you are. I didn't already hit the half century, man.
I have to. I
Okay.
know I look like I'm 35, but
I shaved today just for you in this session. The perception, I think you alluded to this, perception of people, and I don't know who those people are, of maybe demeaning retail.
Mm,
Is that coming from consumers, or is that coming from folks within the industry? Because I think we as the consumers may take it for granted, right?
yeah.
But yet and still, every single day, look, I'm in Target, I'm in Walmart, I'm in Safeway, whatever the case may be, and taking that ability to go out and buy goods and services at a location
Yeah.
really shouldn't be taken for granted. And I think we need to be cognizant of that, right? So instead of just assuming that every time you get in your car and you run down the street, Rite Aid or CVS is going to be open, you can pick up whatever you need to pick up. Talk to us a little bit about some of that mindset and how maybe the folks within the retail organization and industry can help us as the everyday consumer be more respectful.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there is and I'm going to send it to you, and I will send it to you after this. But there is a comic, Seth Seiss, I think. I'd love to say that's his name, and he actually has an amazing little TikTok, and he has all these different customers that are coming into a retail environment, and he is like almost kind of going in the mindset of a retail leader. Yeah, one of the things he says, a customer will come in and say, "Well, I know this sale ended last week, but can I get the same price?" And he'll say, "No. Why do you think that you can get the same price?" And it's almost like, to your point earlier, around like things get taken for granted about how we operate our business, but also we do want to please our customers. We want to give you the best deals, but in certain situations we just can't. And I think what we can do from a retail standpoint is just help those outside. And this is actually part of what we're going to be doing with Worthy Retail U, is how do we help those individuals outside of retail understand what we do, understand our decision-making process, which is exactly why I say the decisions of a retail leader impact everyone, every day, all around the world, because they truly do. And it happens hourly. It's not just daily or weekly like people think. We're making decisions hourly based on product adjacency, based on a visit. If I come into your store, guess what? Now the entire day goes away. Your agenda, what you had, goes away, because now you got somebody coming in and visiting your store. The other side of it is that from a seasonal standpoint, how do we adjust that? So helping people understand what we go through, that our decisions truly do impact you. So if you come into an Apple store, James, and you can't buy what you want, guess what? A decision maybe about 2 or 3 weeks ago that could have probably brought that product into the store was probably impacted by someone that actually made a poor decision or whatever it could be. So how do we help people understand the decisions that we make truly do impact you as a consumer when you come into our stores?
Let me ask a couple of questions. I love to. I'm gonna throw Charles out here, brother Jackson. I was wearing your hat earlier today, brother. I was on the stream. I didn't want to wear it twice, but yeah, I was rocking you, brother. Um, Consumers as a responsibility, and I see my dad is
Mhm.
online watching, and he's a prime example of doing this. And I want to ask you this: if we don't get quality service, if we don't get the
Oh,
level of service that we
yeah.
expect, again, by going into a location, and we go then to seek out management, supervisor, or whatever the case may be, and express that concern.
Yeah.
Give us a little retail industry. Does that really go somewhere? Do folks really listen? Because I think it's valuable, and so I want to give a shout out
Wait.
to my dad since he's listening and he's watching, right? And he is on it about doing that. If it's good service, he'll go tell
Yes.
someone. If
Yes.
it's bad service, he'll go and tell someone.
Yes.
But just again, having that feedback loop to the folks that are again on in the trenches, the front line, that they're out there folding clothes and putting the lima beans on the shelf, whatever, right? They need to hear that they are valued from the
100%.
consumer's perspective. So, I mean, how does that kind of, since you talk to the leaders, right? How does
Yeah.
that kind of trickle down to the folks that are in those tactical
Oh,
positions?
what is that? What is that? The 1 minute manager catch someone doing something right, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's exactly what we would ask for consumers.
Mm.
When you do have that experience and it's great, you catch someone doing something right. Talk about it right there in the moment, right? Surveys are great. We love the surveys because it gives us a different perspective. But I tell you what, if you were to talk to that person who just gave you great service right then and there, it goes a long way. Not saying that your conversation with that person, supervisor or whatever, doesn't trickle down to them, and they don't get that messaging. But if you have that opportunity right then and there as a consumer, I'd ask that you just go ahead and do it right then and there. To talk about your other question, it actually does. The information around whether it's around an assortment issue or whether it's around great service or poor service, it actually does go places. However, what I'm trying to help leaders understand is how do you take that information and actually utilize it properly? Because a lot of times the root cause. So going through grad school, like critical thinking is just something that's just been embedded in me.
Right.
How do we go down to actually the root cause of something and not just the surface level of that statement? Is it a training gap? Right.
Wow.
I talk about it in two ways. It's either they don't know or they don't do. Right. So if they don't know, listen to me. We could work with them all day long. That leader, that trainee, or whatever it is, we can work them all day long. But if they know and they don't do, that's a completely different conversation. So now, how do we actually go about taking that content or that survey information and utilizing it as a teaching moment? Hey, James, we just had this conversation like 2 or 3 times, and here
Right.
is a comment that actually just validates exactly what we just said. You know exactly what you need to do, but you're not doing it. So how do we have a different conversation in that context?
I love that because that resonates in all industries, in a lot of industries, right?
Mhm,
Again,
mhm.
positive feedback, positive, critical feedback, um, just being able to have that dialogue. And again, instead of letting it fester, but having it on the spot. So again, you can correct whatever types of actions or anything of that nature. So I'm glad we went down that path because I really
Yeah.
wanted to have that conversation. I was saving that retail type conversation for you. And I saw I got a shout out from my dad. So I'm doing all right.
Excellent.
Let me ask you about this as well, because the things that you're talking about resonate again from the professional perspective. But what's kind of the biggest takeaway that you want attendees from those sessions that you have? There's the structured, either
Yeah.
one-on-one, one-to-many types of section. What's the biggest takeaway that you want them to have? Is it again focused on? No, let me not even read into it. Let me let you answer that. But again, from the perspective of again, when you close your laptop and when you walk out of the
Yeah.
door, what is it that you want to leave with the people that were in the room?
I think a lot of times, some of the underpinning of what their thought process is that I'm running out of time, Steve, to whether it's either to hit that next level from a growth standpoint, or a lot of times to actually impact my life and do something of significance. Those are some of the underpinnings of a lot of our conversations that we have with different leaders. And so what we try to do is a lot of times is that they're not an active participant. We say this a lot too. Every leader is on a journey, but you have to be an active participant in that journey for you to be successful. And so how do you become an active participant? It's understanding who you are. It's understanding how do you show up for work? What are you going to, how do you show up for your team? How do you show up for your peers? How do you show up in a meeting? How do you show up for your boss? How do you show up in the context of when you've had a bad day at home personally, and then when you go into work? Understanding all these different nuances are part of your journey, but you actually have to be active in understanding how they truly impact your life. One of the things we talk a lot about too is imposter syndrome, and that idea that I'm not good enough, Steve, maybe to go to the next level, or I've been passed over. Well, I've been passed over as well. So we try to have a conversation about that context as well. But the biggest thing with let's just talk about imposter syndrome, because we deal with that a lot. And I actually utilize it as a catalyst and try to help them utilize that as a catalyst, because the only time I feel that you are having imposter syndrome is in a classical sense of the word, which is you're not feeling satisfied with where you are. You don't think that you're worthy enough, pardon the pun, to actually go to the next level. Honestly, you are on the brink of something big. You have to think about it in that context. If you are feeling that maybe I'm not really good enough, you don't get imposter syndrome when you're just operating where you currently are, when you're just operating at your current level.
Wow.
I firmly believe that when we're trying to do something big in your life, something completely different in your life that's going to take you out of your comfort zone, that's when you start to feel that you're not worthy enough, or that you feel like you don't have the capacity to do that. Take that with a grain of salt and understand that now you're on the brink of something big, and utilize that as a catalyst to kind of move forward. So out of what I want them to take away is that they have to be an active participant. So our goal in any of these conversations is to help them make decisions timely for themselves. We benchmark their progress. We have a conversation with them when they've actually hit a different milestone. What's the next milestone? A lot of times, here's the thing about coaching too, James. I'm sorry for going on a tangent.
No worries.
Is that a lot of times people in the coaching industry, they will say, well, coaches shouldn't have an agenda when they're coaching someone. And we're human beings. There is no possible way that we won't have some underpinning of an agenda when I'm coaching James Hicks on trying to go to the next level. The underpinning of that is, how can I help you be successful? What do I need to do differently in myself that can actually help you get to the next level? So there is some underpinning of an agenda, because if you don't, you will stay the same, and then James will stay the same. I want us both to try to grow out of this circumstance. And so having an agenda sometimes, from a coaching standpoint, is a little bit of an underpinning, almost a misnomer sometimes as well.
Love that. I love that. That's a great segue into, I wanted to bring up your website, right? And talk a little bit about your focus and the things that you're working on. Let me ask you this as well before we kind of dive into this. Are there specific retail verticals that you focus on, right? As fast food, clothing, or is there anything specific that you focus on, or do you kind of try to cover the gamut?
No, we cover it all. I think initially, we were looking at specialty retailers, but I've had retail restaurants. I've had specialty retail, supermarkets, right? All individuals in our coaching program doing different things. And so I think what we've really tried to think about is not so much the vertical, but the mindset of why they want to actually be here in this program. Why do they want to go to the next level, and what does that look like, and help them define that for themselves. And then based on that, so our structure is very simple. So in grad school, we talked a lot about gap analysis, right? So you talk about your current state, your future state, and then the gap in the middle. That's exactly what we talk about from a coaching standpoint, is how do you actually understand your current state, Where do you want to go? And now I can help you with the things in the middle. And that's the journey part of that process as well.
Awesome. Now, I will ask though, which vertical or industry is the most challenging? I'm not asking you to throw anyone under the bus, and I pick the words very carefully. But I would be interested to know, right? Is it the restaurants because it's so fast paced and you're dealing with angry customers every now and then, or is it the supermarkets where you're dealing with foods? I'd just be curious to know. You don't have to answer if you don't want to.
So no. Here's the one thing that and I'm not sure a lot of people will. I don't know if this will upset anybody, but the individuals in the supermarket are a little tougher, and here's why: it's because a lot of them are dealing with unions, and if people don't have that understanding about how unions actually truly impact the retail environment, I can talk to you all day long about that and how that impacts the managerial decision making and how you actually what you lead and how you say to people what you say to people. And so that vertical, if you will, is probably the most challenging because there's other red tape and other conversational pieces that especially retail we don't have to deal with. We can actually just kind of talk and have a decent conversation. Big box as well. Big box, if you will, those are probably some of the easiest ones because they're really eager. Because here's the other things, because they see the opportunity. Walmart, Target, right? All those guys and gals. I'm a former Target person. We see the ability to grow, and so they're a little bit more understanding and really want to get into the meat of what they need to do to grow.
Okay. Former Target. I just spent a little money yesterday in Target, man. You guys are taking a lot of my money. Well, now I won't say you guys because you're not.
Oh, it was one of my best experiences, man. It was one of my best experiences, and I learned a lot about communication around also understanding your position. And we talk a lot about that with our clients because they think that they actually have a certain position that they need to communicate in certain way. And I always tell them that you need to communicate less and listen more, and understanding the power of your position. I'll give you a quick story. I was with my senior vice president at the time, and we were traveling to a different market, and we went into one of the stores, and one of the stores it wasn't great, right? We actually went to two other stores. And the other two stores, he asked us to give feedback to the team, which was great. But this last store we went into, it wasn't great at all. And I actually walked the store with him by myself. And we were in the recap, if you will. And what he said, the store was horrible, James. It was bad. It was really bad. But what he said just taught me so much about communication. He could have easily come down on them. Easily said, hey, this. And he said, you know what? Your brand's off today. That was it. But coming from a senior vice president saying that your brand is off is like the district manager giving you 10 different things to actually fix. He understood his position, understood how he needed to communicate to the team, and the team took it just as that and fixed everything. So, but that was a super duper lesson for me to learn. At a certain position, you have to communicate differently.
Yeah, leaders versus managers versus supervisors, but really, quote unquote, folks that lead don't have to go out there and do all of the yelling and stomping on the ground and waving of hands. That's a really telling scenario right there. So that's pretty cool. Back to your website, you've got some resources there. I literally just subscribed to your podcast. I was negligent, haven't subscribed to it yet, but I'm a new subscriber. I will definitely put links to worthyretailU.com in the description of this, and also to your podcast as well. Let me ask you a couple more questions.
Yeah.
We talked about the past, we talked about present, so the here and the now. What's next, right, for Worthy Retail U?
Yeah, that's great. We have a lot of things that we're trying to, I guess, streamline first, right? So as you well know, I'm starting to move into the live streaming space, and now starting to get into the video content creation as well. So we're trying to make sure our messaging is correct with both of those platforms, both of that process as well. The podcast piece is something that I just truly love It speaks to me. I did a little radio in college and in New York, and a buddy of mine, we actually had a blog talk radio show for about 4 or 5 years in Atlanta, and it was amazing experience. Actually, he's the one that told me to do a podcast. He said, "Steve, you need to do a podcast," and I was like, "I'm not trying to add that to my workload. I don't know if I was going to fit it to my workflow."
Right.
And when I started that process to do it, I completely love the medium. I think it impacts a lot of people, and I think if your content is correct, right? We always talk about content is king, but if your content is correct, it will start to resonate with people, and people will listen. But it'll also kind of change their perspective. So for us, we're just kind of getting our messaging and our core right. We're going to be doing a completely different launch with some of our group courses as well. And then we're going to start rolling out probably this fall some more individual courses. So whether it's going to be led by myself in live, or it's actually going to be pre-recorded. So we're in the process of actually getting those courses formulated as well.
Fantastic. Well, me being a technology guy, I have to ask this last question about technology. What in your studio, in your lab, in your toolbox, what is the most critical or what's the go-to piece of technology that you're utilizing today?
Oh man. Well, we're both part of that Ecamm community.
Yes,
and Doc Rock, I guess I don't know if he coined that phrase or not, but GAS, right? It was the gear acquisition syndrome. And I got to tell you, dude, man, I had a whole bunch of gas, and hopefully people will understand this they'll listen to the first part before what I just said.
I'm gonna cut that up and use that as the promo reel on Instagram. Steve Worthy has a whole lot of gas. I'm just gonna cut
it right there. A whole lot of gas, man. When I first started in podcasting, it was around the mic. It was around the microphone and making sure that the mic was right. And if I had to say anything, it's probably I do have, as you can see here, I got that's my first mic, a Rode into USB mic, and then I got a Shure MV7 in my drawer, and then I have a Shure SM7B over here, and then I just purchased, because we're going to start doing some more webinars and everything. I purchased a Sennheiser MKE 600 that I'm actually using right now.
That's a good one.
So if anything other than Ecamm that I've been delving into, it has to probably be kind of the mic and then the lighting, if you will.
You putting some okay. You keeping the economy going there, brother. Not but and it's interesting that you're focusing first on the audio, because we can do this video thing all day, but if you don't sound right, if you don't have the audio, that's can be the biggest drain in you getting your message across. So I mean, that Rode, that NT that's not a bad mic. Then you said you stepped up to the MV7, then you went ahead and got the big fella. Nothing wrong with having the big fella in there too. So
yeah, and then I got the little. I'll tell you, when I say gas, man, I'm serious. The Rodecaster Pro right here, and then Doc and June got me all amped up about this DBX 286S. That actually bolted onto to this desk, and I'm going to be doing this the entire desk over. But I also liked one of your videos, because I think I got the recommendation for you. You just did the unboxing for the iLoud mini monitors.
Correct.
So based on, I think it was I can't remember the conversation you had. I think you even had someone on your show, and I was like, okay, let me try those out. And it's both of them are right here, and they're amazing. They're amazing. Yes. When I'm doing my podcast editing, like it's the sound quality is outstanding, man.
Small form factor, high quality. Yeah, shouts out to Derek Floyd and IK Multimedia. I'm actually looking at standardizing on that gear, especially when we start getting back out in the streets, right? So a lot of us are going to some conferences coming up. We've got events, and we're actually getting back out in the street. So I'm actually I was talking with him earlier this afternoon about standardizing on his equipment, so I could spread the message to the community as well, right? Because it's very high quality. It's very reasonably priced, right? 'Cause not everyone can afford, or not everyone wants to spend the X number of dollars on the Rode Wireless. Great company. I love them.
Yeah.
I got them too. But there are alternatives which are also high quality. So I don't necessarily want to knock quality versus price, but again, like to give people options in terms of what they have available to them as well.
Yeah,
So that's pretty cool.
I think it is. You have to start where you are, right?
Yeah, yeah,
I researched this tons even before I launched to the podcasting space. I just researched mics a lot.
right.
I initially wanted the Shure SM7B, and I gave myself a goal, a download podcast goal. And once I hit that goal, I was like, okay, now I can make that investment. I
Yeah,
said, for now, I'm going to continue with my Rode NT USB. So I hit that, and then of course they came out with the MV7. I said, ooh, I like that one.
gotta have that
And
too.
yeah, and yeah, but I hit a milestone from a download standpoint. I was like, I'm gonna get it, and I simply love that Shure SM7B. It's amazing, especially when you're running through that DBX.
Yes, sir.
And I connected with a voiceover coach and had him help me with just a couple of things that I was thinking about, whether it was from my podcast or the live stream as well, just to kind of get a decent sound. So we did a Zoom call. He walked me through a whole bunch of things, and I'm pretty satisfied with the result.
We may need to talk about that offline then, man, because I've got mine going into my RCP, my Rodecaster Pro. We're deviating right now, but
That's
we'll
okay.
talk
That's
about
okay,
that
man.
as well. I want to stay on target, but
Yeah.
I'm happy that you are staying focused and staying active in delivering your message. I'll say it, leveling up your environment so that you can deliver that message and it can sound very professional, it can look very professional, and all of that, because folks are listening, folks want to hear your message, and I can guarantee that folks are in your sessions are being attentive to your delivery, because you're a good man, you got good things to say, and again, we should not be taking this for granted, because we take advantage of the services that you're coaching leaders and
So,
tactical folks about every single day. We're in those stores. When I get off of this stream right now, I'm going to Panda Express to pick me up something to eat, and they better give me some good service, or I'm gonna give them a couple of words.
yeah, yeah.
I'm just
Send
saying,
them my
right?
way. Send the
Yeah,
manager my way. So
that's
I say you need to get some coaching.
I bet.
You
Yeah,
know,
I'm gonna turn you over to Worthy Retail You if we don't get it right. Steve, talk to us, man. Tell us where folks can find you online. Again, I'm gonna put that information in the description, but from a closing remarks perspective, tell folks how they can get in contact with you.
Absolutely, absolutely. You can get it's a one-stop shop. It's a worthyretailyou.com/now. That is a page that will take you to resources and content, and then all of our social media. Plus, it will also take you to the podcast where you can go ahead, one click, and subscribe. And then we also have a weekly newsletter. Everything is on worthyretailyou.com/now.
Love it. Appreciate you, man. Have a great day. Enjoy your holiday. Try to stay cool, because I know it's a little warm over there on the East Coast. But I'm humbled that you took the time to have a conversation with
Oh,
us today on
man,
Perspectives
I
and
am
Focus.
humbled. I am humbled. I was more than thrilled. I know we've been trying to connect as well, and this has been well worth the wait. And I appreciate you asking me to be on here. I really do.
Thank you, sir. Be good.
All right.